Peace, everybody. This month, March 2022, we produced Angel and Z Radio silver mops and hand-done MTNW sticker packs. The ink was handmade by and for graffiti writers and hand-poured in the studio. These products will be shipped to our Patreon members and are available only to our Patreon members. Those who sign up get our monthly products sent to them and access to our Patreon-only episode library. The Silver Mops and MTNW sticker packs both come together with our Patreon and are shipped to our members. We also have a lower tier membership that gives you access to our entire Patreon episode library. We got new Patreon-only episodes out with graffiti writers Bat and Ola, available to all of our members, as well as Duel, Wayne, Les, XSM, Cash4, Host18, Sake, and GS Landlords. Members also gain access to episodes of Z and I speaking on a range of topics from graffiti to books to mental health to life, and can message us any questions for upcoming episodes. The link to our Patreon is in this episode's description. On another note, if you want to get clothes made, do it through Classy Screens. They're a small business that's been working in the industry and our community for years. They've worked with graffiti writers like Claw Money, Noxer, and UFO 907, legendary LES artist Clayton Patterson, New York's first skate company, Shut, and one of the best graffiti shops to have come out of New York, Paradise Plus. They're the best of the best, fast work, quality outcomes with the latest tech for printing designs. They've been supporting us since we started and donated lots of clothes for the food and jacket drive that we had at Tompkins Square Park. Good people. All the clothes we've made was through them, and we're just blessed to get support from a company that's been doing it locally in New York with the best people out. The link to their website and Instagram is in this episode's description. Follow them, show them some love. Like I said, they're really good people. Immense gratitude, as always, to everybody who's blessed us with a listen or support of any kind. Lastly, I got to give a shout out to OG Juice Co. They're a small company that makes raw, organic, cold-pressed juices out in California. Easily the best juices I've ever had. They've worked with Andy Roy, worked with Steve Caballero to make custom juices for them, targeting specific health benefits with each juice. I personally know the owner, and he's been nothing but good to us ever since we've come in contact. Follow OG Juice Co. on Instagram. The link to their Instagram is in this episode's description. Peace, and enjoy the episode. Thank you so much again, bro, for being here.
Yep.
Thank you for Will from OG Juice Co. for letting us in your spot.
Yeah. So Will,
I wanted to start off the episode with two quotes. The first one being Evel Knievel, which you quoted in the Powell Magic video. And it's, even though scarred by failure, it's better for people to take chances in life than to live in a gray twilight, never knowing victory or defeat. Then the second one, which is, I'll tell you from experience that the richest man in the world is still a loser if he's filled with material things on the outside, yet still empty, unfulfilled, and shallow on the inside. To be rich in spirit is the greatest joy and fulfillment any human can experience, for then you become complete, whole, lacking nothing, even when you have nothing to show this materialistic world we live in. How did you develop this mindset? Obviously, the Powell video was a long time ago, and you were still, talking stuff like that. How did this mindset come about?
well, you got to live about 57 years. And I would say just experience, growing up in different cultures and just traveling the world, just being around different people, just looking at different circumstances. And I don't know, I've always kind of had this way of just trying to be the best I can at everything that I do, so whether it's like physical, mental, even health, I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm fat, sometimes I'm slim, it depends on how I treat my body. So it depends how I treat my body and what I put into it. And so I really focus on not just what I consume, through my mouth, but what I consume through my ears, what I see. And so I think it's really important that people take notice of that because and in this world that we live in, we're always trying to be the best we can and do the right thing, but we don't really always know what the right thing is. We may be like following somebody or some path that we think is right, but then it leads you down to a different path, So I feel that, as humans, we have a lot to learn, being a child, being a teenager, being an adult. I'm constantly learning. I haven't learned everything I can in life, and I'm constantly consuming things mentally, you know, um, to better myself. So whatever that takes, and what I love about skateboarding is it's all trial and error. You got to put the work in to get the work out. The more that you do, the more that you can accomplish. And it's the ideal of failing to succeed. I'm all about failing to be successful. There's some things you don't want to really like go into an arena of failing because you might not come out of it, so it's really good to learn like wisdom, and I feel like the best wisdom that you can learn is from the experience of looking at other people and the way they lived, so you don't have to live that way and do those things. So.
In terms of failure to succeed, when someone looks at your life, like for example me, growing up, just watching you skateboard and seeing all the videos, seeing all the sponsors, it's easy to be like, well, there's a dude who's never failed. There's a dude who like he's always he's just been sponsored forever, bro, and
Yeah.
like been just skating forever, for getting money skating. Where do you think the things you failed in have helped you succeed? What are some of the failures that you think you've had that have like pushed you to that level?
Well, I mean, skateboarding is not an easy thing to do. You got to practice and try to figure things out, and your foot placement, your body placement, how fast you go, how you react to the elements around you, balance, patience. A lot of people I feel like don't have a lot of patience in life, so they just want to be successful overnight, and success doesn't come overnight. There's a lot of hard work, so that's why I have this strong thing about I don't believe in natural talent. Like people always brag about, oh, that guy's naturally gifted or that guy's naturally talented. I mean, that's an easy thing to say on the outside, but if you say that to the person who is talented, it's really like it's not a good feeling, because I know how much work I've put in all my life. I know what I think about at night, in the morning, during the day while I'm driving. I know all the hours and hours I put into skateboarding, doing art, writing songs, learning how to ride dirt bikes. Now I ride mountain bikes. I know the work I put in, and people only see the results, because normally, if we're posting on Instagram or any other social media, you pretty much put all the makes and you put all everything to make you look good. But it's rare that you see people put a lot of bails and how long it takes to get there. So, I just feel like, nothing comes natural. Everything has to be learned and taught, and sometimes we're taught the wrong thing. So it's just trial and error, and it's just practice and patience and knowing that all the work and hard work you put into it, eventually it'll come back to you and you'll be successful at it. But it takes time, and a lot of people are not patient. And what I've learned about patience, the definition of patience is long suffering. And people hate suffering. And I don't mind it, That's why I have been successful at everything I do, because I'm patient and I'm willing to see. I can see the future by knowing that if I put this much work into it, eventually I'll succeed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I agree with like the social media aspect, because I can imagine, especially like a young kid growing up, starting to use social media or wanting to get into like these subcultures, or for example, starting to skateboard. Like you said, people just post their makes, like the prized possessions. Like no one posts the hours and hours of mental breakdowns and like physical breakdowns. So like that kid will be like, yo, like, how are these people just doing this? Like posting every day some like crazy shit, like where they didn't learn. This came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So it's important for like the youth, especially coming up, to understand that social media can be a little deceiving. You know what I mean? There is a lot of hidden hours of very hard work. You know what I mean? And like the way you speak about these philosophies, I could say like they're very genuine, and you could tell that you're speaking from the heart. Like, where did this stem from? Like, at what point in your life did you like transition to this mindset? Was it from an early age? Like, do you think it was just meant to be for you to follow this path of this righteousness? I don't know.
Not necessarily. Like I said, I've made lots of mistakes in my life, and I have some regrets of things I've done in the past. But that's everybody. No one's perfect. So we've all fallen short in some way. Like I said, it's just at a very young age, just looking at people's lives and watching where they lead, and being wise at a young age, knowing like, okay, well, that guy ended up like that doing this. It's like, it's pretty simple math, But what happens is we become very prideful, and then we become very like, oh, ain't gonna happen to me, Well, a couple years down the road, we'll see where how much you know. So even today, I feel like even when I'm trying to talk to my own kids, they think that I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Because kids get to a certain age, they grow up like want to know everything, and then all of a sudden like they know everything and they're so smart, and you don't need to teach me anything. And I think that it's really important for people to be teachable, like for the rest of their lives. Like, that's how I want to be. I want to learn all the time about everything. So I want to be open-minded. I will be closed-minded to things I know that are going to be harmful to me. But I will be open-minded to all the things that will bring blessings to my life and bring me success. And the more and more you practice, the more and more things get easier. And then they do become natural to you. And then that's when you start seeing all the clips, and you start seeing all the great art that comes out like so easily. Like now, like I've put so much work into art, I can bust out a piece like super quick. It doesn't take me that long because I have the confidence. And what happens is when you lose that confidence, then it takes longer to accomplish anything. So it's building that confidence base and believing in yourself, having other people believe in you, helps that growth. But when you have people that are very negative, very like, they can keep you down, So I try to stay away from the people that keep me down. I try to be associated with people that lift me up, and not so much where I feel like I'm invincible, but to a nice, humble place, knowing like, I believe in myself. I know I can do this. And I base a lot of success off of fear. The less fear that you have going into something, the more successful you'll be. Because I always say, like, skateboarding is 90% mental. The other is 10%. The physical part is 10%. Because you can be super talented and super good at something, but if your mind is telling you, like, you can't do it, it ain't going to happen, because you're not going to be confident enough to step in that place and be vulnerable. So one of my idols, early days, Bruce Lee, with martial arts and the way he attacked it and the way that he was open to all types of forms of fighting, to produce his own style of fighting, to be in an arena with somebody to know, like, well, if that guy is a boxer, I need to learn how to box. If that guy is a grappler, I need to grapple. Like, so I think he was like the first initial introduction to MMA and all that kind of fighting, but he took it to the limit, and he not only did he take it physically, he took it mentally, the way he thought about things. I feel the same way with Evel Knievel, as far as his mental process. He had a positive mental attitude, sometimes a little too positive, where it was just very like arrogant. But most singers, most people who are arrogant are very confident, and it takes confidence to be successful. So unfortunately, some people take it to the extremes where it can be a bad thing. Some people take it to a nice level where it's a confidence that's humble, but you're so for sure for yourself that you know that you can succeed. And I think a lot of kids are scared. They're very they're fearful, so they don't accomplish much. They'll look at something, they'll be like here's the difference. Like, I'll look at a painting and I'll go like, man, I want to paint that. Some other person will look at a painting and be like, I can never do that. So as soon as they say, I can never do that, it ain't going to happen, So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of alcohol, because people abuse it. But it's one thing that it will definitely teach you how to take fear away, and that's why it is so popular, because it brings people out of their shell, So if you ever want to know a person personally, get them drunk, and that's how they are really inside. Like, they'll be hiding behind their shell when they're not drunk, but if you get them drunk, then that's the real person. So when people say like, oh, well, I did that because I was drunk. Well, you became real. You know what I mean? So you can't blame it on the alcohol. Blame on the alcohol for it, like, bringing your true self out,
I feel like once your mind has decided that you can't do something, it's like out of the 100% spectrum of possibilities, you just cut off like 90% of it. You just like cut yourself short immediately just by thinking that. And I'm also a big I'm someone who looks up to Bruce Lee. His like philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which is like essentially just like you said, MMA, just adopting what is useful, discarding what is useless, and like being open-minded to the fact that what you have studied could be completely wrong, or the way that your ancestors have followed could be completely wrong, and you might get shunned by approaching it in this new way. But maybe that's the way that is more efficient. You know what I mean? His like, oh, if you're gonna do like a spin kick, you might as well just be more direct and forward and do like a front kick or something like that. Like, I think those are things that are useful in all spectrums of life. In terms of success, because we keep saying that. What do you define as success, and is it relative to each person?
Definitely relative to each person. So I define success of having an idea and a goal and accomplishing that goal. It's not always a financial thing. It's, because I've been very successful at skateboarding and learning tricks, or being successful at being a better dirt bike rider, being successful at being a better mountain bike, being successful of writing an album with the band. But it always doesn't have to always equate to money. The unfortunate thing about money is it brings prestige and it brings importance to people. They think that if you have a lot of money, you must be important, or you must be special. That's not always the case. But it does bring respect to things that people look down upon. So in the outside world, in the world of materialistic world, yeah, making a lot of money brings you to this next level of like, oh, that person's important, But for me, I would rather have wisdom, than tons of money, because I've known from just experience and seeing people, like I said, I've been alive 57 years, and I've seen even some of the richest and most famous people are the most depressed and sad and suicidal people in this world. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a common thing, you know what I mean, that people that have it all, I feel like they in a way somehow get numb to pleasures, you know what I mean, since you've felt like the top of the top shelf of every pleasure in life. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, you've already hit it. There's nothing really to strive for, I would think. But, it is a common thing that people say, like, money is the root of all evil. But would you also agree that money can bring experience and, the ability to, I don't know, experience life through, like, traveling maybe, or, like, using, different mediums like dirt bikes and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, money, definitely is helpful. And they say it's the root of all evil. But I think the love of money is the root of all evil. If you're in love with it, that's a whole nother tangent. Love, people don't even know what that means. It's a word that you just kind of throw around. You know, people experience love in different ways. You know, I love my car. I love my girlfriend. You know, like it's two different things. I love my mother. You know, I love my kids. I love the graphic on this deck. You know, it's different. You know, it means different things to different people. So you know, I became a Christian when I was 40. You know, I stayed away from God and stayed away from being spiritual. You know, I actually became an atheist for a while, you know. And actually Bruce Lee led me to that atheism because I actually read one of his books on Taoism and Zen. And it's an Eastern philosophy of life, of how we live life and how we adapt to things and how we live in the now. Don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the future. Focus on the now. And so I was always searching for some kind of like meaning. Like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what's the purpose of me? Like, why am I alive? You know, and how now that I am alive, how do I get through this life smooth? You know. And so I adapted to like that Zen philosophy because it's kind of the way I live my life. You know, I just kind of approach things casually. Like I just kind of take the good and leave out the bad. Try to take the path of least resistance. You know, live in the now. Don't focus on the past. Don't focus on the future. So I really was attracted to that, and I'm like, oh, you know, everyone's got their thing. You know. Buddhists got their thing. Taoism's got them thing. You know, the Catholics, the Christians, the Jewish, the atheists have their thing. Everyone believes in something. You know, so it's really difficult to want to pick one thing because then you feel like, oh well, I live this way, but this person lives this way. Am I right? Are they right? You know, for me, I always want to do the right thing, but when you're seeing all the way these different people live, you don't know what is right. It could be right for them, and this could be right for me. But you know, how right is it? Like, what's their life like at the end of the day? You know, you study all these things, but at the end of the day, are you fulfilled? You know, where are you completely happy, like joyful, or are you still grasping for something? So, for me, I was always keep on grasping for stuff. Even being Eastern philosopher in Zen, and I still always grasping for something, you know. And I feel like that's why, you know, for skateboarders, you know, trying to be good at skateboarding, you're always grasping for something else. Like you learn an ollie, then what's the next thing? I want to do a kickflip. You know, that's not good enough. I want to do like a backside flip now. Now I want to do a 360 flip. Now I did a 360 flip on the flat. That's not good enough. I need to do it on 2 stairs. Well, that guy did it on 8. Okay, well, I got to do it on 10. You know, so you always just keep grasping. You're never like completely fulfilled, you know. And I won a contest. Okay, well, what's the next contest? Okay, well, I won that one. Okay, now what? You know, I got this trophy. It's just sitting there collecting dust. All right, no one cares about it anymore, you know. So it's like, you know, if you watch the Bones Brigade video, the documentary, Tony Hawk talks about, you know, being number one and then just being unfulfilled, you know, like getting away from competition because it's like you get to this point where it's like you can win so many competitions and then what? Like, what's the next thing? And it's just, and then people expect you to be the winner. You know, people have these expectations on you, and it's a lot of pressure. Ronnie Mullen went through the same thing, you know. So, you know, being in a band, writing an album, we wrote I'm in a band now. We wrote an album. It was great, but we want to do a better one next time. You know, so it's just all these things you just keep chasing, and they're small little fulfillments, but then it's not complete. You're not completely fulfilled, you know. And then, so for me, when I became a Christian and I started following God and started following Jesus, that right there was a turning point in my life that made me completely fulfilled. Like that was the end all, like, now I have God in my life. That's all I need.
What about it? What about it fulfills you that didn't fulfill you? Let's say in the Eastern philosophies.
Well, the Eastern philosophies didn't really teach me about love. Like, God's love is way different than what people think, and the way that the Bible teaches it is complete and full, lacking nothing, and it teaches you to pretty much get away from more of the material things and just focus on what's really important, and that's loving people and how to love people. The one thing that I love the way Jesus said about love is, like, it's really easy to love people who love you, but try loving people who hate you, because in all these other, like, different ways of living, and, like, they don't teach you, like, it's not unconditional love. Everything's based on a condition. You work really well, pay you really good. You work shitty, you ain't gonna get paid. You know what I mean? That's not the way God works. God loves you no matter what. Doesn't matter how much money you make. Doesn't matter what kind of car you drive. Doesn't matter what kind of job you have. But friends and family, you attract to things that are, like, famous or rich, or you want these great things that, like I said before, are unfulfilling. But the way that God loves you, He doesn't love you just to where you're at. You could be like a complete loser and God still loves you. And He's teaching you how to love people correctly. Lance Mountain once told me this one thing. This is probably, like, I want to say, like, maybe a year or two before I became a Christian. He gave me this scenario. He's like, "You think you know what love is?" I go, "Yeah, I've been in love before." And he's like, "Oh, okay. So when you hold the door open for somebody, right, and they just walk right in, and they don't even acknowledge you or say thank you, how does that make you feel?" I go, "Well, that pissed me off." And he's like, "Well, then your motive is completely wrong for what you're doing." I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you held that door for that person because you wanted the pat on the back, and you wanted them to recognize how good you are, but you didn't actually do it out of the kindness of your heart. So your love that you were trying to express for this stranger was conditional. That's not how God teaches how to love. God teaches how to love unconditionally. It means you do things for people and don't expect something in return." So I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I opened that door because I wanted them to say thank you to me and notice how good of a person I was. That's a conditional love. That's condition. But unconditional is like, I'll hold this door for a person. He don't have to say anything to me. Don't even have to recognize me. I'm just doing the kindness of my heart. That's how you should approach the world, and that's how God wants us to teach us how to love people correctly, is love people unconditionally, not you're trying to get something in return. So then the expectations aren't high on your work, your success, your friends, your family. You're not always disappointed in people. You're loving life and not having all these expectations that get crushed daily. Because people get crushed daily with everything because they have these expectations of, like.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you talk about this because, as someone who, in a lot of the avenues that you've taken, you've done your thing really well, from music to art to bands, skateboarding, all of that stuff. It's like you've done your thing really well, but yet you still not only experience but also have seen through the wide range, just dissatisfaction from people of the highest level, like Tony Hawk, who when they're at number one, Rodney Mullen, they're like, "Damn, but now everybody expects me to be number one. Now I have this added pressure that when other people are viewing me, it doesn't seem like I have any, like, problems, but I have my own set that's completely different from what they've experienced." In terms of your skateboarding and through a life of being sponsored, and skating as a career, how did skating for money change skateboarding for you? Did it, like, at any point make it like, damn, this is like becoming a job, or did it not feel like that? Is it different? Every kid dreams of, like, I want to be a pro skater one day. Like, especially when you're younger, you're like, I have mad time to get good. Like, I could do it. How did that change it for you?
Well, like I said, I was pretty shy growing up, and always kind of had a humble personality as far as just being very appreciative of what I got, because I didn't grow up in a rich family. You know, my parents could barely afford anything. Skateboarding was not super popular back in the mid 70s. I mean, it was a fad, and there was magazines and everything, and there were things to aspire to, like, skating these skateboard parks that were being built all over California that were never around before. The fame is what attracted me. Going to the 7-Eleven and picking up a skateboard magazine, looking at the magazine, looking at these people riding in pools or riding on ramps, and these guys, they were pros, and they had all the great equipment, and like that was something like, wow, that would be kind of cool to ride that board that guy's riding, or skate that pool, or go to the skateboard park, so, or to even be in a magazine one day, that'd be awesome, so that's kind of what attracted me, and just the fact that riding a skateboard is very difficult, and learning how to balance, and learning how to go down the driveway and make the turn without falling. It wasn't that easy to do, especially with the equipment that we had. But over years, equipment got better. Over the years, there's parks popping up in my neighborhood, and I was able to go there. My parents were able to drive me and maybe get one session in for 1 or 2 hours. And then I saw like this one skateboard park that had a team, and it was called Campbell Skate Park, and they were having competitions every week, and then if you were really good at skateboarding, you could win things. And so that was my introduction to competition, and knowing like if I practiced super hard, I could get really good and place and maybe win something like a prize. And so that was my drive. It's like, okay, I want to win things. Like that'd be cool if I'm just riding my skateboard, learning tricks, and doing these things that I that I have fun doing, and I can get something from it. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. And then so I was entering these contests and placing and winning things, and then they had this thing where you could get on the skate park team, and if you got on the team, then you could skate the skate park for free. And I'm like, okay, well if I can get on the team, now my parents don't have to pay for me to skate. Now I can go there a lot more. So I was just trying all I can do to get on the A team so I could get free skate time. And then I could just take the bus there, and I wouldn't have to need my parents. Just ask for like whatever, a quarter to get on the bus, or how much it was. I think it was a dime. I don't know. It was cheap, and just go to the park every day because I just loved. I felt like I fit into that community. I felt like when I was at school. I've always been pretty short, and skinny, and I felt like I couldn't be on the football team. I wasn't good at soccer. Didn't really care about baseball. All this like team sports at school. I just felt like track. I didn't want to run. I didn't have the legs for it. I just felt like I didn't fit in. And I felt like with skateboarding, you didn't have to be a certain stature. I could just be a good skateboarder, just being a short little dude, and I was learning tricks. So I felt like that's where I wanted to be, and that's where I wanted to be successful at being a good skateboarder, and that right there brought attention to me, and I liked that attention. I felt like I was somebody, and that's why I just kept chasing it, and eventually I got sponsored. Now I'm getting free boards and wheels, and now I'm getting travel. So it just kept building, and I just knew at a very young age, the harder you work, it'll never stop coming. So I was always trying to please my sponsors and please everybody so it did feel like a job right at the beginning, because I knew that I never wanted to lose what I was getting. So just do your best, progress, and keep getting better and better. And eventually I turned pro, started making money, and then in high school, like when I was a sophomore, everyone talked about your career and what you're going to do, your electives, and I was going to take electronics, at school, because I'm from NorCal. That's where Silicon Valley is, all the computers. And then by the time I was a sophomore, I'm like, I'm not going to college anymore. I'm already making tons of money. At a 15-year-old, I'm making money. I'm making more money than my parents. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do for a living. And I just continued with that. So,
yeah. We've spoken to, a number of people on the show that grew up from your era, and, they were in the same situation, in one way or another, where they didn't have a lot of money. They grew up with like a broken family, and they've had some crazy pasts, like they've, instead of resorting to subcultures, they resorted to gangs and violence and all that kind of stuff. And you could just see in their eyes, like, that they tell stories without them even speaking, you know what I mean? So do you think that if it wasn't for skateboarding, or do you think it would be possible in some way or another that you would have leaned towards that kind of negative lifestyle?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
For sure. Skateboarding saved me as far as where I was heading. I have to say, like, probably half my school is either dead or in jail. That the neighborhood that I lived in. And I felt like skateboarding took me away from the east side and brought me to the west side. The east side was full of like Hispanics and African American, and the west side was more Caucasian, and that's where the skate parks were, the richer area. And I felt like it took me away from the hood over there and brought me over to, some place where that was my family, that was my friends. And when I lived in the east south side, I didn't care about rock and roll. We called that's what the stoners music. We had a group of white dudes at our school. They listened to rock, the stoners. We knew that they, drink beer, smoke pot. But then when I went on to skate park, there were no blacks or Mexicans over there. And they were all listening to rock and roll, and I'm like, oh well. I wanted to inspire to be part of them. And so what do they listen to? Oh, they're listening to rock, and what music I listen to. Because I was listening to like Commodores, the Bee Gees, Jackson 5, and when I went over there to the west side, they're listening to AC/DC, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith. I would never want to listen to that stuff, but that's what the skateboarders listen to. So that's what I aspired to. So when I came back from the skate park, I told my mom, take me to Tower Records, and I want to get some cassette tapes, and I got Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, and AC/DC.
Did your parents at that time have a conception of like the paths that their child could have taken? Like, did they know how close the youth could have been to participating in like gang culture, or like being a part of skateboarding, which was like more safer? Like, did they understand? Were they trying to keep you away from that, or?
I'm not really sure. Like, I come from a broken family. Like, so my dad left when I was 11 years old, divorced my mom. So I grew up with just my mom and my one of my older brothers. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And by the time, like, I'm like the youngest. So my next brother's 5 years older. So they were already graduated, before I even I didn't really remember my childhood with them. I didn't grow up playing with them. I pretty much, I feel like I'm an only child because I was so many years apart. So the way that my parents helped entertain me was just buy me toys, anything I wanted. I had the Evel Knievel like wind-up toy. I had Hot Wheels. I had BB guns. I mean, anything. Like my brothers always say, like, my parents always spoiled me. Like, they gave me everything that I wanted, in that sense, because they had themselves to play with. I didn't have anyone to play with except for myself and my neighborhood friends. So whenever I wanted a toy or something, they'd buy it for me, So I still feel like I'm spoiled. I buy myself toys now.
Can you tell me about what the equipment was like? Because I've heard of skating at a time when wheels were made out of like steel or plastic, and like how Vans, like the Authentics or the Eras, used to come with like ankle parts that you could put, which they would not make now because they know that no skaters would buy that. How different was that?
Oh, well, when I first rocked up to the skate park, I had Nikes on, and that's because when I looked in the magazine, I was looking at the skateboarders and the pros, and what were they wearing? They were wearing Nikes, So I had my mom get me some like used Nikes, so I could take to the skate park. But then when I went to the skate park, I saw people were wearing this shoe called Vans, and it had this little side stripe on there, and the waffle sole. And I looked in the magazine, I'm like, oh, that's the shoe that they're talking about, made for skateboarders. So I had my parents drive me to the Vans shop there and buy me my first pair of Vans so I could be a skateboarder. But yeah, before I went to skate park, I rode those boards that you're talking about with the steel wheels and no concave, just a flat piece of wood, no grip tape, till like
It's like a death trap.
Oh yeah, that's why skateboarding didn't progress for so long, because the equipment was very primitive. And then they went from steel wheels to like clay, which had a little bit more grip but it's still slippery, and then some had rubber. But then when the urethane wheel came out in '73, that changed the whole revolution of skateboarding, and you could actually get grip, and you could actually dig into your turns and go faster and roll over cracks and rocks, and it just made skateboarding much more fun. Trucks got independent suspension got built. People started putting grip tape on the top, so now your feet stay on your board instead of slip off. So the boards got wider. So with the development of skateboards and the equipment, and then like pads, you actually had pads now, and then they put pads that you could put over your other pad that had a plastic cap on, that you could actually like fall to your knees and slide. And so I just adapted to what I had, and once I went to the skate park, they made you wear everything, like wrist guards, elbow pads, helmet. So I had to get all that stuff before I went to the skate park. Well, I went to the sporting goods store and bought like a hockey helmet, soccer pads. Like I had the most primitive stuff, and then I rented wrist guards because I didn't even know what a wrist guard was.
It's crazy. You're reminding me like in the Lords of Dogtown, in the movie, when he's just like, yo, they're made of urethane, dude. Like in the skate shop, and he's like, what the fuck is urethane? He's like, it's a type of rubber, but they grip. Yeah. And then it's like them at the schoolyard, fucking skating the banks, just doing frontside carves. It's kind of wild. How does it feel skating on steel wheels? Like skating a bowl.
I tried it recently. I went to a skate park, and my friend Neil Blender had this old board that had clay wheels, and he had one with steel. And I tried to ride it at the skate park, and it just was like ice, like no grip, and super dangerous. But when I did ride that board, it kind of brought me back to when I first got into skateboarding. I'm like, oh, these boards are really cool. And I've never had a skateboard collection. So then I went home and I searched eBay and I found my first board. And then I just got hooked, because when I get into something, I get really focused on it. And then it's just what drives me. And then it becomes an everyday thing. And so I collected this 1960s skateboard collection in about 3 months. I have over 100 different decks. And people started noticing that I was collecting these decks, so they'd send me photos of the decks that they had, and I would make trades, like art trades or boards trades with these really rare decks from the 60s, from all over the world. So I have that's, if anything, any kind of skateboard collection, I have a nice 1960s skateboard collection that I would not really want to ride. But they're cool to look at, and it's cool to see that's where skateboarding started.
In terms of skateboarding and being pro for so long, what do you think you've learned through all the years of skateboarding and being pro, and anything from like approaching it from a career setting to just your mindset and how it's changed in it?
I would say stay limber. Don't lack. Just be. Just eat well, and practice all the time, and just like stay limber. Because the older you get, the more tighter you get, and the less you skate, you start to stiffen up. And I feel like in my older age, I've gotten a lot stiffer. It's harder to bend down and reach the board, because maybe you got a gut, or your muscles start to like tighten up, and I feel like in any kind of sport, I feel like you should be loose and flow, so you can flow and not have any restrictions, and that just makes things easier. I think a lot of people make things a lot harder for themselves because they don't take the time to condition themselves, they just go right into it and then can cause injury. They're not well hydrated. I drink lots of water. Water is very important. Over the years, people have developed all these kinds of drinks to help satisfy our thirst, but water is probably the best and most safest thing anyone can drink, and most healthiest thing anyone can drink, even though it doesn't taste as good as a sugar drink. But when you're performing as an athlete, water is the best thing for you.
Yeah. And I was going to say, speaking of injuries, you've mentioned how in motocross you've broken your femur, your ankle, and you were back on the bike like 4 months later, you know what I mean? And I wanted to ask you, because in the beginning of this interview we talked about mindset, you know what I mean, having a positive mindset. Because I think like conventional medical practices, they don't really focus on that too much, just having positive affirmations and having a good energy towards your injury, like they're more focused on like physical pills, like rehabilitation processes. I'm not saying those don't help. I'm just saying like there's another side to it, in my opinion, that can help, is the positive mindset going into injuries. Because I feel like you can how many people get hooked on like serious drugs from just a simple broken bone, what I mean? Because they're home and they don't know what to do. Like essentially they're like kind of withering away mentally and physically, So what is your mindset on like what are your thoughts on having a positive mindset during an injury? Like, how do you go about it, and how have you went about it in those times?
Well, I wasn't going to let the broken femur hold me back. I felt like, it's a broken bone, bones heal. I can get through this. So I already had a positive outlook on that. With wisdom that I have from other people getting injured riding dirt bikes, a lot of guys have gotten injured, broke bones, got hooked on pills, pain pills, and couldn't get off of them. So I already had that mindset going into surgery, like, okay, these doctors are going to try to give me these pills to make me feel better. I'm going to take them for maybe 1 or 2 days, and then that's it. I'm going to cut myself off, because I don't want to end up like those other professional freestyle motocross guys or other athletes that have gotten broken off, and then the pills make them feel so good and with no pain that they end up relying on them even after they're already healed. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to go there. So I already knew, like, I already had this goal, like, okay, these guys are going to keep trying to give me these pills, these doctors, and I'm going to say no, and that's what happened. They kept trying to give them to me. I'm like, no, I'll just take Advil. I'll take the lowest minimum dose. And so I didn't want to get my body to get used to, like, want to feel the certain way. I wanted to let my body heal, the way it can heal. And so, and that's how I was able to work through that. I knew that the more work I put into, I would come back faster. So I had this goal of, like, conditioning myself. I went to physical therapy, but then I did my own. I'd go to pools and try to walk. I couldn't walk at all for the longest time. And that made me really appreciate the real simple things in life, and that's walking and going to the bathroom by yourself. I was on crutches. I was, on a stroll, pushing a stroller thing around. But I remember, and I would crutch to the training facility where they had a bike where I could pedal, just to keep the muscles moving, so I wouldn't get atrophy and I could keep loose. And then I would watch my son skate for an hour while I'm listening to headphones and pedaling for an hour. So every day I would do that. So I was conditioning myself instead of just sitting there on the couch, with ice on my leg, watching TV, trying to get better. I was putting in the work, and that's how I bounced back so fast, and I was determined. I was like, I'm not going to let this thing bring me down. As a skateboarder, I've gotten hurt my whole life because it's dangerous, So obviously the motocross injury was one of the gnarliest things. I have a metal rod in my femur still. It's going to stay there because, it's probably stronger now than my right leg. But yeah, so, I just ate well and just did the exercise and the therapy, and I came back, and I was riding mountain bikes within 4 months, and I was like, man, I'm on a mountain bike. I can get back on my dirt bike. Skateboarding was a little bit more difficult to get back to, and I was coming back, and then 11 months later, I broke my ankle. Dirt biking, you know. And I was like, dude, really again? I can't even go a whole year without getting broken off. But you know, it's the nature of the beast. You know, it's we are who we are. We do what we do, and there's a risk factor to it, and that's what, you know. People like, I'll read stuff on Instagram, man, you're such a badass, you're so gnarly. I go, well, you know, it doesn't come easy. You know, it takes a lot of confidence. It takes being fearless, you know, and taking risks, you know, and I'm a risk taker. That's what I do for a living. You know?
How has diet played a role in your life? When did you get into eating different, and what is your style of diet?
Well, I saw a really good documentary called Forks Over Knives years ago, and that had a lot to do with diet and eating meat. So it got me to stop eating pork and steak over 10 years ago. So I haven't really touched that. You know, I didn't eat chicken for a while as well, and I only ate like fish and vegetables, so they call it a pescatarian. But then when 2014, I moved down here, I started eating chicken again, and so that's in my diet. I mean, I could probably do without it, you know, and but I eat, you know, I don't eat steak or pork, you know. And
Are you into cooking?
I am into cooking, you know, and I think it's fun. I think it's creative, and I actually was going to start a YouTube channel. It's taken a while, and because I'm so busy doing these other things, but I was going to start a cooking show called Cooking with Cab, and have this like my first, because I don't have a YouTube channel, and I thought, oh, this would be kind of a good way to have a YouTube channel and bring guests in to like show people how to cook certain dishes and then how to prep them and make a great presentation, and then go skate or go ride mountain bikes or dirt bikes with that same person, and just kind of like do like a weekly show with that. So it could still happen. But yeah, so I have an Instagram called Cooking with Cab, and there's some dishes that I've learned to make throughout my injuries and when I'm just home being bored and want to feed myself and not being able to actually go out and drive to go somewhere, just be home and cook, you know. So it's a very creative way to do it, and you can get really good at it the more work you put into it, and so it's fun, you know, and definitely is a lot cheaper than eating out every day.
Yeah, it's cool too, because in skating, obviously, like, diet's not a big part. Skating, it's just like, if you give a shit about diet, you are super whack. That's the mentality. And it's cool because as the legends start, you know, promoting that more and showing what they eat, like eating fruit, eating salads, avoiding this or eating that, and actually giving a shit about it, like, you see some gnarly dudes getting onto that and like trying to change their life. You'll be able to skate better and longer. So I think it's really cool.
Well, like I said, you know, I just try to be myself and do what's productive and what's healthy for me, and I really don't care what other people think, to be honest. I mean, if they're not into it, that's fine. Yeah, but I know what I like, and I know what I like to promote. Like, I'll get people to come on my Instagram page and try to tell me how to live my life and what to post. And I go, you're coming over to my house, trying to tell me how to decorate my rooms, you know, like, this is me, you know, like, so
Yeah.
I don't go to your house and say, hey, paint that wall red, or that's an ugly carpet you got going on there. You know, I don't like the way that, you know, you put that couch over here, or, you know, it's like, I might not like it, but I'm not going to tell you, you know, how to design your home. So that's, you know, so that's the weird thing about social media. I mean, social media is another thing that can be a very positive thing, and it can be a very negative thing. It's the way you approach it, and it's the way that you treat people on it. You know, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of views that really don't need to really be spoken, because, to be honest, like, people don't really want to hear it, you know. And so it's not until someone asks you for your advice. I always feel like, and it's a hard thing to do because you want to share what you know to other people, but some people aren't ready to hear it. So like with me with the gospel, you know, my love for God, Jesus, I'm not out like holding the Bible and like trying to Bible thump everybody. You know, they know what I'm about. You know, I want to let my life show it rather than just try to like preach it out to people. You know, I want my life to preach it. You know, because my life is real. Like words, anyone can speak words. Everyone can say this and that, but then turn around and act a different way. That's called a hypocrite. You know, so less you talk about it and be about it, less people can like criticize you for being hypocritical. You know what I'm saying? So talk less, do more.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree by living through example, because I know I have friends too that you know, they get very aggressive with preaching their views and like you know, like veganism or like the carnivore diet, or like you go on social media and you read some of these comments and you can get stuck in, it's like it's almost as bad as politics. Like it's just so divisive, and it's like dude, what is this even about? Like I just want to eat some food. Like this is a whole aggressive like thing going. It's like a war, you know. And that's what I was gonna ask you is you know, it seems like you don't really listen to the noise. You kind of just go with what feels right in your body and how you feel physically and all that. And I feel like that's the right way to do it. Like see what works for you. You know what I mean? Because it's so like picking sides nowadays. You know, it's easy to get lost in that. You know.
I listen to the noise though. It's hurtful. You know, some things people say. You know, it can mess with your mind, but you really just got to really kind of soak it in and just and try not to react to it. And like I said, you know, it's very easy to love people who love you, but try loving someone that hates you. That's the true test of you being a loving person. You know what I mean?
I just want to close this off saying immense thank you for coming on the show. I think that your life, without a doubt, has inspired a lot of people. It definitely inspired me throughout my whole life, and I think your life is an example of things that are possible if you dedicate yourself and push over time in any field. Yeah. So just thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it,
bro.
Thank you guys.
Shout out to OG Juice Co, bro.
Yeah. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Will, man.
Peace.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.